Hey, what's happening? Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. It's Robert Phoenix, your blue collar astrologer, hardest working man in alternative media, right here, bringing it to you live from the hill country beneath the tree of life. What's going on, everybody? We got a few people showing up here. Actually, even before I hit the go live button, people were congregating, milling around. There's PB and DJMC. My man Masaki, he's going to be a big star in October down here in the hill country. Christy Tesmer, what's going on, Christy? Let's see, Carolina in the Pines. Good to see you. I'll be seeing you, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next week as well. Who else do we have here? There's Natasha Lloyd. What's going on? Good to see you. The lovely Danica Rose. There she is. Uncle Glenn, good to have you back, Unca. Lordy in the house. Mary Grether, 10 Dragon. Amanda Pomander. Lisa Marie. What's going on, Lisa? I will call you today. I promise. Paul Netton. What's going on, Paul? Paul's one of my favorite Pisces people of all time. I just got to say. Paul, you represent Pisces so well in so many ways. I love your Piscean story. Good to see you here. There she is. Mrs. Mojo Mama. Justice Moody in the house. Good day, mate. Derek Reagan Walls. Good to see you, Derek. Joe Dimitri, the Persian scribe, is here. Michael R. Lils. Eileen Kepper. Nice to see you, Eileen. A woman of many talents and skills. Such a talented group we have here. Frank Bry, Meta Medi. Awesome. Superstars, Chatlandia, the Jumping Spider Clan, Victoria V. There she is. The Crimmies in the house. Good morning from Wyoming. Michael, I'm hooking you up today with my pal, my Dr. Pal, Dr. Jones. So the hookup is coming. Good to see you, Michael. Summer is over in Glasgow. The heavens have opened. Right. Can they reach down and then take Nicola Sturgeon and pick her up and then remove her and bring her to the heavens? Is that possible? Can Nicola Sturgeon be removed from the experience? Allegheny test. Yes. Your test is working. There you go. Let's see. Yeah, you're welcome, Michael. You're absolutely welcome. By the way, I think Nicholas Sturgeon's a dude. I think it should be Nicholas Sturgeon. If you don't know who Nicholas Sturgeon, I guess, is the PM of Scotland. And I've seen photos of Nicholas Sturgeon, who looks like Nicholas sporting a mustache. Nicola Turgeon. So this is the theme, I mean, the world is being run. The world is being run by, I think, transgender Karens. That's what I think. The world is being run by transgender Karens. Well, Robert got me good this morning. His show says 9/19/20. My computer says yes. I like this. I like to, I play with time, Maury. I play with time. Time sometimes plays with me, right? Part of my routine, start the day. Yeah, I think the world is being run by transgender Karens. And I don't have any problem saying that. Yes. His show says 8/19/20, mistype above. Yeah, whatever. I'm here. That's all that matters. Time is irrelevant. Oh my God, transgender Karen. Yeah. Would that be a great band name? Wouldn't that be TGK, transgender Karen? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. A friend of mine says that she's definitely not interested in men. Oh, really? Interesting. Transgender Satanist. I'm sure transgenders are more predisposed to bathymetric displays of expression since they are in some ways an imitation of Baphomet and not an imitation of Christ. Good morning, FUP77. Her husband is a beard for sure. Yes. And maybe I can find that picture. So people, I'm sure you, like, who's Nicholas Sturgeon? What the hell is he talking about? Who is this person? Why is he saying this? All right, I'll give you the the visual of Nicholas Sturgeon. See if I can find it here. There's one where, let me see here, where you can actually see the little mustachy thing. She also looks like Merkel too. That's the other thing. All these, they're all kind of cookie cuttered. The Merkel Sturgeon clone model. Is this the one? Let me pop this up here. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah. I saw this thing the other day and I was like, man, she's sporting a little stash there. Here, I'll just do the screen share right now. So you can at least get a visual of this fine leader who basically is scolding footballers for violating some kind of mask rule or social distance rule or party rule or whatever they're into these days in terms of scolding people with. This is the person in question, Nicholas Sturgeon. Oh, look at that. She's got a tartan plaid mask. Isn't that quaint? There we go. Here's a fine picture. There's a fine picture. There's a fine picture. Yes. Of Ms. Sturgeon. Yeah. There you go. I don't think is that the one that has a little bit of the mustache groove going on? Let's see. There she is as well. Big chin there. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, we got the Purple Revolution. The Purple Revolution's happening. That's right. It's going to be purple. Yes, indeed. Now we have to have the red, the lady in red. There she is. The bridge is a symbol from one world to the next. What does that look like? It looks like a DNA strand, doesn't it? That bridge is an intertwining DNA strand. Wonder what the message there is. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Isn't she a peach? She's just a peach. I think you can kind of see the mustache there. Can you kind of see that thing right there? Can you kind of get a visual? Oh, look. UT colors. Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, this is the one. There it is. That's the one. I found it. Somebody didn't shave. Come on now. You got to do a little bit better on that manicure in there. Nicola. You guys see that? That's what I'm talking about. Oh my God. Here we go. Starting it off with a little bit of humor. Can you see what I'm talking about? Waiting for you to bump your invocation up by honoring both aspects of the Holy. You know what? I tell you, man. I say, dear blessed and holy Father, Mother, God. Okay? Blessed and holy Father, Mother, God. Father, Mother, God. Both aspects. I'm gonna have a little bit of a riff now. Okay, just a little bit of a riff. All right, tiny riff. You know, this retrograde Saturn in Capricorn, this retrograde Jupiter in Capricorn has been very interesting for me. Very, very interesting for me. You know why it's been interesting? Because I have really come up against boundaries. Boundaries. And I'm just going to tell you right now, they're being set. All right. Boundaries are being set. And not out of any kind of, you know, animosity, right? Without any animosity whatsoever. But this retrograde pattern has shown me that I need better boundaries. And this is something that I've been working on for a while. And I've been working on boundaries in my personal life, and now the boundaries are coming into the professional life as well. So this has been first of all, I just want to say you guys are the best chat room on the internet, bar none, hands down. Okay, you're fantastic. People come here for a combination of whatever it is that I'm, rattling off, but they also come in to hang out with you guys. You guys are great. You're terrific. Fantastic. Somebody came in, said first time yesterday, just happened upon this live stream, and they said they love the vibe. And I never, ever, ever, ever want to change that, nor do I want to dissuade the kind of camaraderie that has come out of the Chatlandia experience. I think it's unique. And I think it was Christine Mose yesterday said, we're all the first guy dancing. We're all the first guy dancing in that video. And I think that that's true. And that's what makes you very, very special. Okay. Very special. That said, without being a prick, this is my fucking show. Okay. This is my show. And I'm just laying down a boundary. That's it. That's it. And I'm willing to take suggestions. I'm willing to be open. I'm willing to listen. But it's a clearly demarcated line that is going to become kind of more of a practice in my life. And at the risk of sounding like a prick, okay, there it is. So if I don't follow up on something, or I don't, take a suggestion and run with it, please do not take it personally. It's just an exercise in prioritization and boundaries. That's it. That's all there is. Okay. So if you have an idea about my show, or you have an idea about doing something, you know what? There are plenty, absolutely plenty of internet outlets, vis-a-vis YouTube, any other thing you want to do, where you can express the things that you want, right? And sometimes I will be open, and sometimes I will listen, and sometimes I will reciprocate, and other times it's just going to be a no-go, a no-fly zone. And that's going to be, kind of more of my regimen as we move on here. The retrogrades in Capricorn have been very interesting. Very interesting. All right, enough with that. Let me tell you what I did yesterday. Yesterday, I took time out and I went out to a very cool place out here in the Hill Country. And one of my guests on Friday is going to be a couple that I met yesterday, and they do horse rescue out here in the Hill Country. And I'm not gonna, kind of give you any more than that. I want you to experience this content when it comes to you fresh on Friday. But it's a great story, and we're working out a deal where in October when you guys come here, they're gonna be part of our experience, and that's all gonna be talked about on Friday. Okay, so just want to let you know that I'm working pretty much most of the day to get a lot of stuff done, including the details of the event, which I'm ironing out. I just have to finalize a few things, and I know you guys are anxious. Just trust me on this. I want to create a really good experience for you. And sometimes these things just kind of happen, in a certain way, in a certain time. And I didn't know about this person. I knew about this person, about a month and a half ago, but it really didn't coalesce until yesterday when I went out to their property. Okay, so just hang in there. You're going to get to meet you're gonna get to meet him on Friday. You're gonna hear the story. You're gonna hear what we have planned. It's gonna be really cool, and you're gonna want to be a part of it. All right. So, just give you a little bit of an update there. All right, let's do this. Let's do this. How's this for being bumped up? Dear blessed and holy Father, Mother God of the great central sun, within universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, we ask that only the highest and best information, wisdom, truth, and love come through this channel at this time, and that we as a group and we as a family are blessed and graced with the qualities of empathy, compassion, flexibility, fortitude, endurance, strength, commitment, wisdom, humor, and above all, love. And that any karmic residue be cleansed, purified, clarified, and cleared away so that we may return to our lives sovereign. So be it. Okay. Thank you for your patience, and thank you most of all for your support, which I truly, truly do appreciate. I truly appreciate. Okay. Let's get going. All right, lots happening. I got a lot to cover today. First of all, what I want to do is I want to talk about we're right now we're in that balsamic Leo moon, letting go, right? Letting go, dissipation. That's what the balsamic moon does. So you want to let go of things that aren't ultimately serving where we're going with this new moon, which I think is an important new moon. Sun, new moon, Mercury, all in Leo, right? We get to reclaim our hearts. So what we want to do is we want to let go of the things that are keeping us from really, really getting in there and just wrapping our arms around this idea around the heart. And a lot of people think that the heart is a Hallmark holiday card, okay? You know, I've had a lot to learn about this thing called the heart in my life. A lot. And I'm still learning. I'm still trying to understand, what it means to have heart, or to have a heart, to have courage, to have a sense of conviction about certain things, to understand love. And love is not always, warm and fuzzies. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And I'm still a student of the heart right now. And I'm learning every day about this thing. Just so happens that this place that I went to, the person who runs this horse ranch, this horse rescue, happens to be a Leo. Okay, I guess maybe that's part of the lesson and part of the plan. So, but what is the lesson around the heart for each and every one of us? It's manifold. It is manifold. It is a big deal. It's a really big deal. From the simplest and kindest act of love to the hardest and most difficult acts of discernment and boundaries. These are all contained within the heart and more. All right. Heart can be, it's a vessel. It's a huge vessel. It's just a major organ in our bodies. And when we talk about Leo, we talk about heart because it rules the heart. So as we're in this balsamic moon, as it dissipates, I think it's good to let go of structures, to let go of hooks and cords that keep you from really being able to channel your heart. And what your heart is may not be the same as another person's heart. You may not be channeling the same kinds of frequency or the same kinds of sentiments. It doesn't make it better and it doesn't make it worse. Okay. Let's just be clear about that. So what is important to you? Where's your heart? Where's your heart? This is a heart check time for humanity. We're in a heart check time. If you haven't noticed that, the head check time is there, right? I mean, it's there, obviously, because, we see a lot of people walking around, essentially, following orders blindly, succumbing and surrendering to the so-called rule of law, which isn't even related to the law. It's these flimsy and very subjective mandates that are coming from either hospitals or county health commissioners. But the missing ingredient here is the heart. It's the heart, right? The heart to be able to stand up for something, the heart to be able to say no when it counts and yes when it matters. Like I said, I'm still a student of the heart. I'm still learning about it. But my lessons lately have been, in a lot of ways, about having to get into my heart in a way that's uncomfortable. And these are good lessons. These are very good lessons. Because I'll tell you one thing about the heart. It is not sentimental. It is not sentimental. It doesn't mean that love doesn't count or it doesn't matter, but it's not sentimental. You know, the heart can be an absolute tireless taskmaster if you really follow it, right? If you really follow it, it'll be a tireless taskmaster. And there's different lessons for each of us. So I guess today, if you're going to be looking at sort of the astrological import, which people really like when I bring to this show, it has to do with letting go, the balsamic moon, this disseminating balsamic moon, to let go of the cords and to let go of the ideas around your heart. You know, when that happens, sometimes you get into territory that can be really uncomfortable. Really, really uncomfortable. You know, when I say this is my show, and you know that I'm gonna basically kind of border on being an asshole, right? This is kind of a lesson for me, in some ways. I'll never want to be an asshole because that's just not in my wheelhouse unless I'm really forced to be. But it has to do with pride and some level of respect, which is also very much connected to the sign of Leo. When we think of the lion, we think of pride. They have a pride. They have baby lions. It's called a pride for a reason. And when you see a lion, what do? You automatically respect the lion. It's like, holy shit, you know? Don't cross paths with that, especially the female version. So when we get into this idea of the heart, it's not always lovey-dovey, at least for some people. For other people, maybe it is. Maybe the thing that you need is have your heart just cracked wide open because you've been the person that has been creating boundaries. You've been the person that's been putting up walls. You've been the person that has said, I'm going to put me first, okay? And that's not a bad thing. I'm just telling you, it's not a bad thing. We can learn a lot from people that put themselves first. I certainly am. Maybe their lesson is to be cracked open and put others first for a while, right? Maybe that's what their lesson is. Maybe it's your lesson to put yourself first. And I say that in the most enlightened terms possible. Because when we think about those things, we think about being self-centered or selfish or self-interested, which is, again, all very connected and tied into these Leo concepts, all right? But I'll tell you right now, the most successful people on the planet, what do? They put themselves first. And what else do? They surround themselves with people who help make their success possible. That's what they do. And not everybody who does that is a great orchestrator of that, okay? They have lessons to learn as well. So this is the lesson of the heart. And right now, I'm a student of the heart. It is the month of Leo, and I'm learning about my own heart and what it's capable of and what I want to do in order to ensure that my output is coming from my heart in the most authentic way. And it's stretching me. And it's stretching me in a good way. That combined with the Saturn retrograde and the Pluto retrograde and the Jupiter retrograde with all this Capricornian stuff, right? All this Capricornian stuff. These are the teachers right now. You can learn from them in a big way. All right. That's my sermon beneath the tree for this morning. Check in with your heart. Where is it at? Where do you need to grow? Focus there. Let's get into today's show. So, what we're looking at now here is essentially a purge. This is what's happening globally. We are in the midst of a purge. We are in the midst of a cultural revolution. We all know that. We can agree on that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I've been talking about this now for at least 2 years, if not longer, probably longer. But we're in the midst of a purge and a cultural revolution. And this has happened before. And this has happened, most recent. Well, we think of like the Bolshevik Revolution. We think of the People's Revolution in China, right? The Cultural Revolution of China. We think of the revolution in Cuba. All these revolutions that take place on foreign soil with governments that are overthrown, and then a new system is imposed upon the people. And when that happens, there's a purge. There's a purge that takes place. They purge the previous culture. They topple statues. They desecrate paintings. They wind up burning places of worship, whatever they are. That's how purges work. You go back to Cuba, and Ani can probably speak to this better than I can. When Castro came in and people were getting the hell out of Cuba, you know what that's like? That's like people leaving California now. That's like people leaving New York. This is what's happening. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The only difference is that they're not floating out on boats. They're not trying to get whatever they could before Castro came in and snatched everything. And we're seeing this now in California. We're seeing this in Washington. We're seeing this in Oregon. We're seeing this in New York. We're seeing it in Chicago. It's the same thing. It's just like Cuba. We are living through another Cuba right now. And what was one of the big elements of Cuba? It's called a purge. It's a purge. But these purges aren't always specifically located to physical reality. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've talked about it before, but I want to just give you an example of how we've already gone through this purge at various stages. And it has something to do with, I wouldn't say the government, but it does have something to do with politics. And it's going to perhaps enlighten you slightly. Okay, so here we go. In 1968, let me fire this thing up here. In 1968, there was a major shift in television and the media. Okay, a major shift. And what happened in 1968 was something that was called the Rural Purge. The Rural Purge. Some people know about it. Some people don't know about it. Some people might understand it once they kind of connect the dots. But this is kind of the first phase of, in some ways, what we're going through now. The Rural Purge, that's exactly what it was called. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So the Rural Purge of American television networks, in particular CBS, was a series of cancellations in the early 70s. It really started around 1968, 1969, then going into 1970, into the 70s. Now, these were still popular shows. So the ratings for the shows were there. It wasn't as if these shows were tanking and they had to come up with something different because, their advertisers wouldn't be buying any more advertising because nobody was watching the show. So let me continue with this here. In the early 1970s, of still popular rural themed shows with demographically skewed audiences, the majority of which occurred at the end of 1970-71 television season. In addition to rural themed shows such as Mayberry RFD, the Beverly Hillbillies, and Green Acres, the cancellations ended several highly rated variety shows that had been on CBS since the beginning of television broadcasting. So these are shows that were entrenched in popular culture. Now, I'm not saying that the people that were part of these shows were paragons of virtue. You get into the variety shows, like the people that were, like the Red Skelton now. Red Skelton was a 33rd degree Mason. So I'm not making these people into, saints. I'm just showing you from a cultural level how everything began to shift during this time. And we often think of a purge as being physical and violent and having to do with the removal of people, iconography, and cultures. What we're looking at here is in some ways the same kind of technique that is connected to the removal of statues. All right, here we go. CBS saw a dramatic change in direction with this shift, moving away from shows with rural themes and toward more appeal to urban and suburban audiences. Starting with The Real McCoys, a 1957 ABC program, U.S. television had undergone a rural revolution, a shift towards situation comedies featuring naive but noble rubes, I like how they say rubes, from deep in the American heartland. Now, in many cases, a lot of these people were portrayed as bumpkins. They weren't portrayed as, unless it was Andy Griffith, who was the father that, most everybody wanted but couldn't have. So the Andy Griffith Show, Beverly Hillbillies. The thing I loved about the Beverly Hillbillies, right, and this is an interesting theme with the Beverly Hillbillies, that they're rubes, but guess what? They're always getting over on the banker. That's a really interesting and subversive idea that the Beverly Hillbillies had, and nobody really noticed that. The banker was this conniving guy with his secretary, and he always had some kind of plan for the Beverly Hillbillies. Who was it? Milburn Drysdale, Jed's greedy and unscrupulous banker. The Beverly Hillbillies it was subversive in that way. And it was skewering modern culture and always getting over on the bankers. It was interesting. You won't see that now. Oh, no. No. The bankers are getting over on Jed Clampett, okay? And these are people that had obvious wealth. Well, the symbolism or the iconography of their wealth was obvious. How they actually interacted with it was quite interesting, right? Their pool was called the Cement Pond. And people loved that stuff. It kind of poked fun at them in some ways, but in other ways, they were always kind of getting the upper hand on Hollywood culture and the greedy banker. Well, that was not going to be part of what was to come, right? CBS aired so many of these rural-themed shows, many producers by Filmways, that it gained nicknames, the Country Broadcasting System and the Hillbilly Network, a parody of the actual nickname, the Tiffany Network. So 1966, a pivotal time, comes out to a 22. 1966 is when they have Vatican II, which is a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. Vatican II is a big deal. It's, pretty much ramping up to the height of the Vietnam War. So let me go back here. Hold on a second. Industry executives were lamenting the lack of diversity in American television offerings and the dominance of rural-oriented programming on the big three television networks of the era, noting that ratings indicate the American public prefer hillbillies, cowboys, and spies. Okay, you get the Wild Wild West, you get a cowboy and spy together. James Conrad was he was a Wild West version of James Bond. But it doesn't mean that those programs could not have included some level of diversity. Obviously, when you look at I Spy, you have Robert Culp and you have Bill Cosby together, right? So this is kind of a landmark show. I Spy. They were still spies. They were tennis pros, but spies. So did diversity have to occur, right? Did it have to occur while the rural purge happened? Did they literally have to remove an entire tranche of programming that was actually popular and getting good ratings in order to bring diversity in? Because in a lot of ways, what's going on now is a mirror of what happened then. And they could have easily, if they wanted to, begin to introduce characters into storylines. Wouldn't have been that hard. Would not have been that hard. And in fact, shows like the Wild West actually did. Sammy Davis Jr. shows up on an episode. I think Sugar Ray Robinson shows up on an episode. So it's not as if there wasn't the potential for that. And in fact, it did happen quite frequently. I've seen storylines for shows like The Big Valley where they actually tackle these ideas of equality and racism. There's one Big Valley episode where Yaphet Kotto plays a significant role. He's a great actor. Great actor. So the idea that you could not integrate other cultures or other groups was actually being played out in some of these shows and some of the programming, but that wasn't part of the plan. They had to eradicate everything so that they could bring in a new genre of programming, right? And programming is key when we talk about stuff like this. Programming is key. So here we go. The popularity of the canceled shows. These, again, you may not like Gomer Pyle. You may think it's a hick show, but again, Gomer Pyle is kind of subversive. It's kind of subversive because the sergeant, who is the authority, almost always winds up looking like the doofus. And Gomer Pyle, who is his underling, is always the guy who kind of comes out shining. He's innocent. He's kind of a fool, right? Gomer Pyle's a fool, but he always comes out on top. So we have the fool subverting authority, but not subverting authority in an antagonistic or angry or militant way. It's because Gomer Pyle is guided by, guess what? His heart. And I know it's a TV show, but you have to look at the theme. It's a very interesting theme. And a lot of these shows were kind of connected, right? When you watch Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, The Andy Griffith Show, Petticoat Junction, I think they're all kind of connected. At least 3 out of those 4 are. So what replaces? By the way, Red Skelton. I could not stand Red Skelton. I'm not making a case for Red Skelton. Trust me. Very unfunny, in my opinion. So now we have the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Carol Burnett, Flip Wilson was great. But Flip Wilson was also Geraldine. So here we go. Now we have cross-dressing. Well, cross-dressing has been a part of TV for a long time. Milton Berle cross-dressed. It's part of the shtick. But Flip Wilson was great. He was fantastic. The devil made me do it. That was one of his key phrases. The devil made me. And Carol Burnett was very funny. It's a funny show. So we get into all these replacement shows that come in, and it was essentially a purge, an absolute purge. Non-rural theme shows canceled by CBS included sitcoms, Family Affair, and Hogan's Heroes. Now, Family Affair is a very interesting show on some level for the side story of young gal who played Buffy. And I might actually get into Buffy's story at some point. It's very bizarre. Her name is Anissa Jones. And man, her story is really tragic. Really, really tragic in a lot of ways. And she wound up actually having a very difficult time once this series was canceled. And it was very hard for her to get work again. Very difficult. And it sounded like she started off okay. Sounded like it was a pretty okay family on some level. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, but it doesn't end well. It does not end well. This is a really bad story. She's dead by 18. And I saw an interview with her on the what was it, Dick Cavett show, and she was really smart and really bright and really innocent and really adorable. And guess who was on that show? It was Sammy Davis Jr., the Candyman, who, as most people know, is an avowed Satanist. Right. So now she's sitting, about 6 inches away from Sammy Davis Jr. And here it is. Though she stated on the Dick Cavett show that she filmed Family Affairs during the summer, it was a full-time job. She broke her leg in a playground, and she broke it twice. She was a Pisces, by the way. Now, here's the weird part about her, is she had this Mrs. Beasley doll. And she claimed to talk to Mrs. Beasley. Here's what's really weird. After she died, like the Mrs. Beasley dolls started like spewing these really, really weird, like satanic sayings, very strange shit. Very, very strange shit. Where is it? It's in here somewhere. Where's the Mrs. Beasley stuff? And she tried to play the role of Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver. She tried to get Linda Blair's role in The Exorcist. Like, what's going on here? Why is she going after these roles? Something happened to this young woman on this show. I'm kind of taking a bit of a frontage road here in some ways. But this is a really tragic story. And the tragedy just extends beyond like her life. Her father dies, her brother dies. It's just it's not good. But the Mrs. Beasley stuff is really, really crazy. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, they had Buffy as paper dolls, lunch boxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a theme too during this time. It was the single father. The single father was the theme during this period. You had the Bill Bixby show, The Courtship of Eddie's Father. You had this show with Uncle Bill. You had My Three Sons, The Single Dad, right? So there was a whole strange kind of single dad theme going on during this time. But the Mrs. Beasley stuff is a trip. Where let's see, where is it? Where's that Mrs. So it was a talking doll by Mattel. And it became one of the best sellers in North America. Mattel also marketed two other dolls patterned after Buffy, one in the size of its 2D line dolls, another in its talking small talk line. Featured 8 different phrases using Jones's voice. Interesting. A little bit of child exploitation there, no doubt. Brian Keith is an odd guy. He's kind of a shady character in some ways in this. But I'm just trying to find the Mrs. Beasley stuff, because it's really weird. Like Mrs. Beasley was spouting all these weird satanic sayings after she died. It was very strange. Very, very strange. She died of a drug overdose in Oceanside, California. I'm going to try to find the Mrs. Beasley stuff. Maybe I can find it tomorrow and bring it back here. Yeah, she was, so Family Affair is part of the Rural Purge, which is kind of, what I'm getting at here. So the Rural Purge makes way for social liberal programming. And everything is shifted. Mary Tyler Moore Show, Archie Bunker. Right now, they are creating a model of diversity, but they had to have a purge. They had to have this rural purge. Some of the shows continue to succeed for a while, like Little House on the Prairie, Apple's Way, Family, 8 is Enough. But even some of those shows began, especially 8 is Enough and Family, began to take on these modern kinds of themes, right? TV Westerns were another genre targeted for cancellation. martial artist Bruce Lee, in attempting to pitch his series, The Warrior, to television networks, stated he was told the Western idea is out. Now, if you know this television series Kung Fu, played by David Carradine, which became popular in the early 70s, that was actually Bruce Lee's idea, and they took it from him. So these shows were not tanking in the ratings. They're actually doing well. You know, at some point, people would ultimately get bored with the Western, right? I'm not necessarily lamenting these things. Times change, people change, content changes, we move on. But the thing that I'm trying to get across here is that it was done arbitrarily. It was done arbitrarily. That they made a call that when it was done, it was done. And that is also connected to and related to the time we're in. They've made the call, right? They canceled this reality that was very, very popular on television. Ratings wise, it made no sense. And it's reflected with where we are now. You know, the NFL, college football, you know, having your own business, you know, actual physical brick and mortars, canceled, burning it down, even though they're popular, even though they actually generate revenue, right? It's a purge. It's an absolute purge. And we've seen it before. It got played out in 1966, 67, 68, when they decided they were just going to just completely chuck certain programming. And by the way, those programs usually had values. They usually had values. They usually had some form of morality. And if anybody was being made fun of or anybody was being parodied or satirized, it was generally authority that was overreaching, okay? As evidenced by Gomer Pyle Sargent, as evidenced by Mr. Drysdale, the banker in Beverly Hillbillies. Authority was kind of kept in check on some level. And even the idea of the Western authority was kept in check on some level as well. So I just wanted to give you a historical precedent for where we are now that's taken place in a non-local or non-physical form of what we call reality. So, what is reality now? At one point in time, TV was considered to be even too violent. That the violence that would occur in the 1970s on shows that would reflect the hard and gritty crime dramas of the inner cities of America, from the streets of San Francisco to Starsky and Hutch to Beretta to Police Story, right? This was just the tip of the iceberg. And people, you know, were lamenting TV is too violent. There are too many shootings, too many deaths, too many murders. Well, guess what? We don't even need those shows anymore. Reality has become the violent manifestation of programming. Let me show you now. We're going to return to the scene of the crime, which is Portland from 2 nights ago. And I told you guys that Tucker Carlson would be all over, absolutely all over what happened in Portland. And he absolutely was. He led off with this story. And I'm going to show you once again, it is going to be graphic, it is going to be violent, but I'm going to show you really what we're dealing with here. And I believe this event is the turning point for people. And why is it the turning point? Is it because he was violent? That he was injuring and disabled an unarmed person? Well, yeah, that's part of the story. Another part of the story that was told to me yesterday was apparently the woman who was in that scenario, in that scene from the jump, apparently she's trans. And she was with that guy and he was trying to protect her. So, I mean, there are layers to this thing. I mean layers. Let me show you what the so-called Street Fighter has to say about his involvement here. Now, remember, it's going to get graphic. So if you have to look away, you can do that for probably about the next 30 seconds. I'll tell you when it's over. So here we go. Now you're going to see him come up and basically kick him in the head like he's kicking off from the 35-yard line. All right. And this is what he has to say. Might go to jail for murder tonight for a racist when all I did was fight him. Look it up on Twitter. Put money on my books. And come see me. What the hell is this about? Might go to jail for murder tonight for a racist when all I did was fight him. Look it up on Twitter. This is called fighting. That's not called fighting. That is not called fighting. That's called assault. Okay? I don't know how these people get their heads so fucking twisted around and rewired to think that that actually even resembles self-defense. Okay? This is what we're dealing with. That is a symbol of the purge. All right. So instead of just canceling a show, instead of telling, Eddie Albert that Green Acres is canceled, this is how the cancellation takes place. So now the purge has moved out of the realm of television and programming and onto the streets and homes, not just America, but the rest of the planet. Okay. This is where it's at now. The purge is on. We're talking about heart today. You better have a heart check and understand this. You know where, but I'll tell you something. You know where they're having, I'm going to show you a picture here. I'm going to show you a picture where people are having a hell of a great time. Well, we're struggling here. Well, we're doing our best to keep our heads together so we don't run around and do something that we're going to regret. While people who have small businesses are doing everything they can to stay in business, there are other parts of the world that are just doing just fine. Peachy keen. Let me show you one. Here we go. Look at that. Well, they're just having a fine old time. No social distancing. No masks. They're really enjoying their summer. Do you know where that is? That's Wuhan. That's Wuhan. Wuhan pool party shows China is over the COVID-19 lockdowns. The rest of the world, not so much. This is a psyop. This is to show you people in Australia, you people in New Zealand, maybe even you people in the United States, that maybe, just maybe, if you play ball with the Chinese, you get to have your fucking pool parties back. What's up with that? This is ground zero, right? This was the killing fields for coronavirus. Well, I guess once they got rid of all those undesirables, that the good people, right, the people with the good social credit scores could come in and just splash around. The sight of partygoers in Wuhan, China, piling into a water park without masks or social distancing seems like a cruel joke to nations where no measures. However, disruptive seem to be helping against COVID-19 pandemic. It is a cruel joke. They're doing this on purpose. They are doing this on purpose. This is now part of your psychological abuse, torture, and program. Because I'm telling you right now, you're going to see this on the news. And I'm showing it to you here. This is not by accident. not by accident. Look how just absolutely carefree the Chinese are. Notice how many dudes there are. Yeah, a lot of dudes, right? There's a lot of dudes. Not that many undudes. There you go. Look at that. Thousands of partygoers packed out a water park. We don't even have water parks open. They're closed. Even if you wanted to go to a water park, you ain't going to a water park. That's not happening. Not happening. But China, whoa, boy, their water parks are open. And guess what? They're open in Wuhan. The joke's on you. So you just play this. Just play this. They're raving. Oh, look at that. There you go. Look at that. Yep. They are partying. Oh, it's good to be Chinese, isn't it? Really is. Really is good to be Chinese. Now you're stuck here where people are going to turn on you if you're not wearing a mask. But don't worry. Don't worry. Things are starting to return to normal. Starting to return to normal. You know, kinda. Yeah. Yeah, kinda. But not quite. I'm trying to dial something up, okay? Here we go. While China is at the water park and they're at the rave, and man, they're just having a good time. They're just having a fine old time. Good old Wuhan. It's okay. Concerts are coming back. They're coming back. Don't worry. Don't worry. Those wonderful concerts that people were able to take in and, have a really cool time, bond, not stress about their life, groove to the music, buy some merch, get a little too much of something. Don't worry, they're coming back. Okay, they're coming back. So don't feel like you're getting ripped off. But here's what your concerts are going to look like. Here's the future of your concerts. Now, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? In China, in Wuhan, they're dancing to the rave sound. They're splashing around in water parks. And in England, which is where this is, you're watching a concert in basically a cage. UK's first socially distanced concert shows. What the future of live music might look like. Can we say psychological operation in effect? Absolutely. The PSYOP is in full effect. And don't think people don't notice. Now, they may not make the connection, but I'm here to make that connection, that this is what you're being shown. You're being shown one reality over here, which is Wuhan, China, and they're whooping it up, and they're splashing it up, and they're raving it up, and then you're being shown another reality over here in England, and guess what? You got concerts in cages. You don't think that that's intentional? It absolutely is intentional. It's intentional. It's supposed to get into your head. Because basically what they're saying is the China deal is such a better deal, man. It's such a better deal. Look at them. They're at water parks. They get to rave up. They get to rave out. Meanwhile, our water parks are closed and we're watching fucking concerts in cages. Geez, maybe this China thing is something we ought to think about. right? In the meantime, they're giving you the old China reality, right? That would theoretically be the old China reality. Meanwhile, China gets the old West reality. Can you say inversion? I can. I just did. Crazy, huh? Wild. It is. So, here we go. We've got more challenges on the horizon. Challenges, by the way, which you can meet. I'm just telling you right now, you could meet the challenges. You are up to the task. I'm just here to remind you of that. It's going to take some grit. It's going to take some determination. And guess what the word of the day is? It's heart, 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 heart. But I need you to start thinking about heart in a different kind of way. You can have your hallmark heart movements. I had one with Jasper this morning. But you need to start thinking about heart in a different kind of way. Why? Why? Why do you need to start thinking about heart? I'll show you why. Because the next phase that we are staring down, whether it's here in this country or in other parts of the world, with the exception of China, of course, this is what you're going to have to deal with. This is the New England Journal of Medicine. And what are they saying here? Perspective, ensuring uptake of vaccines against SARS, COVID-2, CoV-2. So this comes out of, this is interesting, Silverman. Ross D. Silverman. Just remember that name, Silverman, just for a moment in time. Okay? Just remember that name. So essentially, what this paper is saying, what it is saying, right? And it was published, June 26, 2020. That's when it was published. Essentially, what this paper is saying is that unless you get a vaccine, you may not be able to go back to work. One option for increasing vaccine uptake is to require it. Mandatory vaccination has proven effective in ensuring high childhood immunization rates in many high-income countries. However, except for influenza vaccinations of healthcare workers, mandates have not been widely used for adults. So this paper goes on to state, it has nothing to do with the efficacy of vaccines, whether they're really there for your health or some other intended or unintended purpose. No, this is about how to get people to take the vax. Right? 6 trigger criteria for state COVID vaccination mandates. COVID-19 is not adequately contained in the state. Well, they sure as hell contained it in Wuhan. Now, as far as I know, those people did not get the coronavirus vaccine. Now, did they? They did get a vaccine in December. That much we know because they made it mandatory in China. Did they get shot with something that's going to make them incredibly sick? Likely. But they're certainly not mandating a vaccine now. They're too busy having pool parties. So this article is essentially a blueprint for not just taking a vaccine, but behavior modification. And forcing people to have the vaccine and essentially linking their employability with whether or not they're going to take the vaccine. This is the New England Journal of Medicine. See, now what we have, and this is not uncommon at this point in time, we have people that are the high priests of medicine and the high priests of tech coming together, and they are creating policy. They're creating policy. This is sort of the idea, the meta idea of Anthony Fauci, which trickles down into all of these sort of sub-Fauci positions. So one of the guys that wrote this is Ross D. Silverman. Now, why is Silverman an interesting name? Why did I say pay attention to the name Silverman? Oh, I'll show you why. The architect for the rural purge was Fred Silverman. This is the guy that carried out the rural purge. He was assisted, aided and abetted and assisted by Brandon Tartikoff. This is the guy that was responsible for essentially saying, we're done. We're done with that kind of programming. We're not going to integrate characters of different faiths or different colors, although that was already happening, by the way. It was already happening and already taking place in some of the writing. No, what we're going to do is we're going to burn it all down. And we're going to replace it with an entirely new paradigm. Entirely new paradigm, new values, new ideas, challenging situations. We are going to rewire the American psyche. We're going to redefine morals. We're going to redefine values. We're going to redefine character. And this is the guy that led the charge and led the purge. Fred Silverman, TV's master showman. How about that? There he is. Synchronicity. So you got this guy who basically said, we're going to burn it all down. And we got another Silverman who says, guess what? You're not going to go back to work unless you get a vaccine. Interesting, right? I think it is. But there's some good news on the horizon. It is not all doom. It is not all gloom. I want to bring to your attention, once again, the new head of Donald Trump's Corona Task Force, Scott Atlas. What a name, right? Scott Atlas, a name for the time. And guess who supports Scott Atlas? Ron Paul. Ron Paul. Ron Paul sees good news. Fauci's out. Fauci is out, by the way. He's done. He's been removed. And look, I think it's been a very painful process with this guy. Very painful. And maybe Trump had to make a slow play on this. Like he just couldn't, purge Fauci. Maybe he had to do the slow play. Fact of the matter is now Fauci is now saying, oh, it's okay to go out and vote. It's okay. Like now Fauci's starting to say the right things because he's been replaced. He's been replaced. So what does Ron Paul have to say? These days, it seems there is not much good news out there. People are still panicking over the coronavirus. Governments are still trampling civil liberties in the name of fighting the virus. The economy already teetering on the edge of collapse has been kicked to the ground by what history, I'm sorry, my screen's a little foggy today. History may record as one of the worst man-made disasters of all time, shutting down the country to fight a cold virus. That's why we'll take good news. Maybe I should do it. That's Ron Paul's very distinct voice. That's why we'll take good news wherever we can get it. And President Trump's hiring of Scott Atlas to his coronavirus task force may just be that good news we need. As media has reported, President Trump has sidelined Handler, headline Hogan and Anthony Fauci in favor of Atlas. Atlas, the former Stanford University Medical Center chief of neuroradiology. Interesting. So we got a new sheriff in town. It's Scott Atlas. It's official. Fauci's out. So that means theoretically there can be new protocols and new mandates, hopefully hopefully moving forward. It couldn't get any fucking worse, right? Fauci wound up becoming. I know a lot of people still revere the guy, but come on. Even Tucker Carlson. Tucker was at one time very respectful to Anthony Fauci. That's gone. You watch him when he starts to talk about Fauci. Fauci's a punching bag now, an absolute punching bag. So things are happening. Things are happening. And good things are happening. I want you to remember that. Good things are happening. They're happening every day. You have to open your eyes to the good things that are happening. And the good things that are happening, they're in your own life. In order to claim those things, we're all going to need hearts in order to claim them. That's it. That's it. If we want to live in a world where, every life matters, if we want to live in a world where every life form matters, if we want to live in a world that AI or technology or anything that is going to be developed matters, it has to take a back seat to what really matters. It is there to serve us, not for us to serve it. Remember that. Remember that. I'm not anti-technology. I'm using technology right now to reach 194 people. So I'm no Luddite. I think technology can be a real ally for us if it's working with us in tandem and in service to reinforce organic and analog values. So here we go. It's Leo season. New moon, dissipating, balsamic, heart check time. Now, I know you guys okay, I'm going to leave you with a positive story. Just want to do a quick update on Shadowgate since it's in the headlines of today's show. Apparently, the whole Shadowgate thing is just quite bizarre. Something to do with Millie Weaver, her mother, a phone, which was already talked about a couple of days ago. Do you get a grand jury for that? I don't know. She's out, $20,000 bail. They raised $180,000 on GoFundMe. Wow. It's a nice little haul. 180 grand. If she's in legal trouble, I'm sure that will go a long way for her to defend herself and defend any claims against her. So good for her on that. I hope that's the case. But the whole story around her mother and the cell phone and smashing the cell phone, it just, do you really call a grand jury for that? The whole thing is just, to me, so bizarre. And now the video can be seen on band.video and apparently Natural News. Both one is an Alex Jones property, band video, whatever, and the other is Mike Adams. And some people like Mike Adams. I don't know how Mike Adams runs an entire video network. Brighteon, that's a lot of money. That's a hell of a lot of money to run that. I'm not even sure how he makes money off that thing. Mike Adams has backers. So, the health stuff, okay. I've never been a huge fan of Mike Adams. I know some people like him. He turns some people off. But what I do know is that he's gotten a scratch to run his own video network, and that ain't cheap. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with something positive today. It has to do with the power of the group. Now, granted, this is an extreme example of the power of the group. Could it be considered a bit of an overreach? Perhaps. But I want you to take notice that what I'm about to show you takes place during a football game. A football game. When I say football, I'm FUTBOL, football, not soccer. All right? Not soccer. And why am I showing you this video? Well, because what you're going to see is nothing short of, kind of mind-blowing. And maybe you should pass this video around. Maybe this might be a good pass around for, let's say, perhaps a much more crucial time, a crucial period in our experience. So without any further delay, let's get to it. What I'm going to show you here, so just grab this thing. What I'm going to show you here is what happens when security at a soccer match goes a step too far.
De incentivo ao árbitro. Ele só queria dizer que a família apoiava José Fonseca, o árbitro português do jogo. Foi então que entrou em campo a segurança. Fora do habitat natural, os 4 homens vestidos de negro começaram a espancar o vestido de branco. De repente, azuis, vermelhos, verdes juntaram-se ao branco e a coisa ficou preta. Durante 10 minutos, os seguranças tiveram o reverso da medalha. Salvou-se o bom senso de alguns adeptos e a intervenção rápida dos jogadores para tentar amenizar o problema. Este segurança ficou inconsciente durante alguns minutos. Pouco depois, saiu pelo próprio pé, ainda com ajuda, com os jogadores do Benfica também de cabeça perdida e Giovanni Trapattoni a ouvir as explicações dos muitos adeptos que invadiram o relevado. No final, não houve detenções, houve sim a festa dos adeptos do Benfica e a passagem dos seguranças para o hospital.
So, I'm not an advocate of violence. I just want to be straight up with that. Okay, I'm not saying you should go out and just randomly beat the shit out of people. But that was a soccer match, okay? That was a soccer match. And those guys were using undue force to basically corral an enthusiastic, probably a little too inebriated fan. And what did they do? What did the people in that stadium do? They responded. They responded. They weren't going to let them beat that guy down. They were getting sucker punches in on that dude. I don't know if you saw it or not. They were sucker punching him. And guess what? They said, the hell with that. And that one guy on the ground, like that guy probably had serious injuries. Okay. Serious injuries. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to advocate that, but you know what? They crossed the line. They could have corralled the guy. They could have just said, hey, let's go. They could have circled him, surrounded him, but no, they decided that they were going to beat the hell out of him. And then the guy who was leaving the pitch, as they say, he's getting kicked as he's leaving the pitch. And that's just for a soccer match. All right? That's just for a soccer match. And, that's a game that's over, and you walk away from it, and you go home, and you live your life after that game. Think about that in the context of where we are now. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And if you're in Australia or you're in New Zealand, pass that around. Just pass that video around. That's all I'm saying. Pass it around. Because you're fighting for your lives. You're fighting for your lives. And ultimately, we're all fighting for our lives. And that may sound a little dramatic, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And I do believe that there are people who are in positions of so-called power that are there, and they are trying their best to help us. I don't think we're alone. And remember that as well. Whether they're physical or they're invisible forces, we're not alone. But we absolutely have to play a role. We have to have our part. It can't all be done for us. Figure out what to do. Check your heart. Live accordingly. And with that, we've reached the end of today's show. An hour and 20 minutes. Right? Hour and 20 minutes. Not bad. Usually the length of an old movie, right? Those movies are clocking in about 120. So, Chatlandia, I love you. Everybody else watching this video, I love you. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart to step what's possible. I'll be back tomorrow. The Friday Farcast. I'll be joined by my new friends, Rosanna and Heath, who have a wonderful horse rescue ranch and life work just outside of Fredericksburg and Lukenbach, Texas. We're going to find out more about them. I got some great pictures of the horses. I met all 9 horses yesterday, and it's an important story, and you'll find out why when they're on the show on Friday. And they'll be on for about a half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, and I might have another guest, but definitely that half hour, that 40 minutes, you'll find to be very, very inspirational. These are people who have hearts, okay? They have hearts, and their heart is being used to take care of and rescue animals for a very specific reason. Very specific. And you're going to find out on Friday. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your support. God bless. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye for now.